Welcome to Pathfinder. This is Pathfinder, produced by the National Council for Continuing Education and Training. This is session 8. My name is Ed Harper. I'm the Executive Director of NCCET. Pathfinder was conceived to share proven solutions in solving some of the worst anticipated problems arising from this pandemic and from this forced culture shift to online training, hybrid, or classroom learning while seeking to remain a safe distance from the rest of the class and faculty. And then yesterday, we already heard that some of the schools represented by our speakers, some of the schools are actually flush with new money, while others are indeed suffering from the strain of under-enrollment. So we've kind of got a wide variety of outcomes here. But this is in addition to the fact that we continue to have underserved and disadvantaged populations that struggle and often go unnoticed during a healthy economy. So it'd be easy to imagine how much worse things can get given our current circumstances. What if we were to take this opportunity to promote the growth and development of these underserved populations while we're also working to increase retention, improve academic performance, and present a positive impact on workforce development? What if we were to do that? All right. Our next speakers in this session is here to address exactly that. Dr. Elmore Lowry is the Dean of College and Career Readiness at Fayetteville Technical Community College. All right, he's going to be joined by one of his colleagues, Dr. Maggie Morley, as they share with us programs that they've implemented along with their achievements and success stories and accomplishments at Fayetteville Technical Community College and others. At the end of their session, they're going to allow some time to answer any questions that you may have provided using the question and answer window at the bottom of your screen, okay? You can submit these questions at any point in time. All right, we'll be monitoring and watching for them, and we'll allow time at the end to get your questions answered. So once again, my name is Ed Harper. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Elmore Lowry, who will lead this session and introduce his guest speaker. Dr. Lowry.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. I greatly appreciate this opportunity to kind of share some of the things that Dr. Morley and I have done with the underserved population and the students of disadvantage. And so Dr. Morley, she'll be defining those students. A lot of times we think it's just African-American students, but it's not African-American students as a standalone when you talk about disadvantaged students. And so I'm grateful for this opportunity, as I stated. And so reaching the underserved and the disadvantaged students during difficult times. And so we'll go through a bevy of slides. And if at any time you have any questions for us, feel free. At the end, we'll be able to address those, okay? We have just a few objectives that you will take away from this particular session. Hopefully you'll be able to gain a clear understanding how leadership impacts the stakeholders and how you can grow during adverse times, as well as how leadership influences the people that we serve on a day-to-day basis. And also, more importantly, community resources and how we can collaborate to make things better for those students who are in need or lacking services. Dr. Morley, you want to explain to students that we're reading?
At this time, I would like to kind of give you an idea of who we are talking about when we are talking underserved and disadvantaged. The general picture that jumps into everybody's mind is a minority person who is stricken by poverty. But there's more to that picture than just that one group of people. It can be a minority person. It can also be a non-minority person. They can be educated or undereducated. They can be having some income or no income. A disadvantaged and underserved student is anybody who does not have access to the resources they need to live a life that is appropriate for them and for their desire, almost, you could almost say. That also includes students with disabilities in a lot of cases.
Thank you, Dr. Morley. As I was stating earlier, I'm actually the former Dean of College and Career Readiness, and Dr. Morley, she and I worked together, putting together a system of leadership that would cater to the needs for the students that we was called to serve. And Dr. Morley, she was the currently the department chair, as well as the disabilities coordinator here at Fayetteville Tech, and she does an outstanding job. And we worked in the College and Career Readiness, where we dealt with students who was trying to achieve their GED and just basically their basic skills. And so, and I can tell you why leadership is so important to me, as well as the students that we're currently serving. I was born and raised in Chesterfield, South Carolina, very small rural area, and I'm the baby of 7. And so I had to spend a lot of my time being raised by my grandparents, who did not really look at education as a centerpiece for us. You know, we lived on a farm, we had 54 acres, and I didn't realize, and nor did my parents realize, I had a major speech impediment, which I couldn't speak. And I'll never forget, I got into the 7th grade, and my speech pathologist, she brought a big bag of candy into the room, and this was on the 2nd day. And I thought I did very well, you know, to be trying. And she set the candy on the table and she said, "What are you going to do today?" I said, "Well, hopefully we can go again, and I'm trying to learn." And she said, "Well, you're going to just sit here and eat candy because there's no hope for you." And so from that point forward, I was placed in special education classes. I was looked at as, you know, not being able to learn anything. And as my career began to move forward in high school, I spent about 90% of my time in remedial classes. And right before graduation, I learned that I would graduate about 3 days before graduation. And so I went into my guidance counselor office, and I had an opportunity to talk with Miss Williams, who was my counselor at the time. And she said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I want to go to college. Which one of these colleges would I be able to attend?" And she looked at me and she said, "They didn't tell you that, you know, you are academic miscarriage and that you're not going to be able to go to college." And so I found myself as one of those students, disadvantaged, underserved. And so I have a heart for the students that I'm called to serve. And so most of my topics will be about the leadership. And one of the things that I learned when I walked out of Miss Williams' office that day, I made this bold statement to myself. And I said, I will never do anything in life but cut grass for the rest of my life. And not that cutting grass is a bad job, but my confidence and my self-esteem was so low I didn't want to read anything. I didn't want how to articulate myself. And I just felt like I was just not leadership worthy. And so I lived my life through college with that scar on me. And I learned something from that, that as an educator, we have a distinct ability to create a billionaire or a beggar. It all depends on how we interact with the students that are before us. And so I really enjoy serving students of disadvantaged or underserved students. And so leadership and how leadership impacts us is it stretches beyond influence. It's about understanding and knowing who you are as an individual before you go into a role of leadership. Leadership, it also brings about order, direction, vision, and relevancy. And one key thing that I understand about leadership as it pertains to order, the only major difference between a garden and a forest is one of them is in order. Everything else is the same, but order brings about clarity, especially whenever you're trying to lead during difficult times, such as this. Leaders, we think differently than what a follower think. Leaders, we look for solutions. We're not necessarily looking for wealth, but we're trying to find a way that we can connect people to their vision and connect people to their dreams and their passions. And so, having said that, if you are a poor leader, you are equivalent to about 2 packs of cigarettes a day. because a poor leader stresses people out. And you'll see some of the studies that we talk about when it comes to leadership and the type of stress that it brings. A leader has a way to demotivate people, and their outlook on life is not as clear as it should be. And so a poor leader really causes a lot of problems. Okay. According to the Tanner Institute, about 79% of the employees quit because of their boss. Now, this is pre-pandemic. So if you take those statistics and look at what we have going on today, you're burning the candle on both ends if you don't address poor leadership, especially for the students that are depending on us to go beyond halfway. And sometimes they're not able to go as far as we want them to go until we're able to train them and develop them. When you look at employees in terms of why they're quitting and walking away from their passion and walking away from their dreams and goals, it's because most employees, they don't feel appreciated. They love their job, but there's no reciprocity in their job. And so as a leader, you got to be aware of the people that you're serving, as well as the staff and the faculty that you're leading. And the Gallup poll showed that over 70% of the workers are not engaged in their work. And this is one thing that you find common amongst people who are not making a difference in their organization. Sometimes it's so easy to just go through the motions and we miss the most critical piece of our life, and that's to change someone else's life. Okay. Great leaders, they leave a mark and not a scar. And so we have a very delicate position in leadership, especially now. Everybody is stressed, the tension is high, hope is lacking. And so we have to make sure with the power and the authority that we have as leaders that we can bring resources to the people. Leadership is the trusted hope that a follower bestows upon the leader, and that they put their hope and their trust in us to give them a pathway, to give them vision and give them direction during difficult times, regardless who our leader is. Once there is something as great as a pandemic or as serious as a pandemic, everybody want to hear from the leader, whether they like him or not. They want to hear from the leader, because that leader is going to bring some level of direction and hope.
Now, as leaders, how can we bring that hope and that trust to our followers, if you want to put it that way? One of the biggest things that we can do is engage stakeholders. Stakeholders can be any community organization out there, because stakeholders can do two things. One, we can go ahead and give them also our support. But in return, we can get support from our stakeholders in resources that we might need to go ahead and serve our students who need that assistance. As leaders, we don't have to be rough and tough. We can let our followers know that we are stressed as well. We understand what is going on, but we still have to move on and we still have to carry on. One of the biggest things is let them know who you are. Let them know that you have a story to tell and that they can be part of the story. Give them the why they need to be who they need to be in order to support the students that you're trying to serve.
This is one of my beloved pictures. And regardless of who you are, that you must admit that this is a beautiful picture, and the relationship is just absolutely outstanding. This is a cute picture regardless. I enjoy it. But the reality of this picture is that this relationship would never work. And as a leader, you have to be able to sever the ties with several relationships that's not working towards your mission, your vision, your purpose, and your call. Though it looks cute, is it fitting? Is it viable? And this is some of the things that most leaders fail to look at. They look a lot of times, say, hey, yeah, this is nice. This person is very nice. This person is very kind, very sweet. But sometimes it comes down to the mission. And so here's a few points to ponder. Regardless of the beauty of the relationship, you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to say, will this relationship work? And the relationship, most of the time, is going to be between you and your coworkers, or you and some of the employees. And so you have to make sure that the relationship, regardless of whether it's unique and rare, look at the functionality of it. Is it healthy for what you're trying to do? Is it going to be one of these relationships that you're going to be fighting, trying to get resources, and fighting internally with staff members who are going against the vision and the purpose? And so you have to make those tough decisions. And because something is neat and desirable, is it working? And you can't allow your softness to overthrow the power of your mission and your vision. And we all have a soft spot in us. Regardless of who we are or where we're from, we do have a soft spot. And a lot of times, our softness sometimes show up at the wrong time and cause us to miss the greatest opportunity of our career, or for that matter, our life. Okay, leaders, one major truth about leaders, and I've learned this the hard way, is we don't always have answers. And we don't always carry maps. Most of the time we carry a compass, because we're trying to find the true north as well. And so understanding that about yourself, and during the times of uncertainty, people are going to desire authentic leadership. They're looking for relevancy. What you're doing in your organization right now, is it relevant to the needs of the people that you're serving? Is it relevant to the businesses that are reaching out to you to try to find solid employees to come to their company or their institution? And so if you're not relevant, then you're irrelevant. And a lot of times we miss and we waste a lot of students' time, because what they deem is success, we have no idea what their level of success is. And so we have to build trust. Leaders must build trust, because if a leader is untrustworthy, he or she gonna always keep some type of tension and strife in the workplace. And there's not enough time in the day to do your purpose and your passion and deal with the drama that untrust brings. And customer service probably should be on the top of this list. As educators, we must make sure that our customer service is at the highest level. And it's not about just giving people their way. It's about reaching them and being flexible enough to where they can feel that you care about them. And one of the things that Ms. Morley and I, when I took over as dean, our retention rate was at 67%. And we was cutting the budget $750,000 per year. And so Ms. Morley and I, we came together along with some other staff members, and we built a on-site grocery store. It was furnished by us as well as some community partners. We had baby diapers, we had food, we had car seats, we had clothes, and students would go home at the end of the day with a book bag full of groceries. We did not limit it to our students. We gave it to their families, and our retention rate went up to about 98%. And because once the students could realize that we cared for them, then the impact of them coming to school, it was easy. And I've always been somewhat controversial in certain areas. I did not think that our students needed academic counselors. I thought my students, the ones that we were serving, I thought they needed life coaches, because sooner or later they're going to understand this math problem, but they can't understand why they were sexually abused at the age that they was abused at, why their mother left them on the doorstep of the fire department, why their father died, or why their father don't want anything to do with them. And so those are some of the things that we had to deal with on a day-to-day basis in terms of coaching and counseling our students, giving them hope to hang in there, that it's going to get a little better, but we got to get this education under your belt. And we got to do what's going to be best for you, for your mental health, and we need you to be in place. And giving them responsibilities to where they felt important. They felt like a man. They felt like a woman. And we taught them different things. And we had to go outside of our lane several times. We had to teach about investments. We had to teach about insurance policy. We had to teach about these different things to try to help build a foundation on the broken pieces that was given to us. And so the spirit of customer service, it goes beyond just a nice smile and a wave, but it's about getting down in the trenches with these individuals and letting them know you're there, regardless whether they quit or not. You're still going to be there. Okay. Leaders are not. There's no leaders, no great leaders are developed in times of comfort. If a leader is going to be born, he or she is going to be born whenever there is absolutely chaos, and they will rise to the occasion. They will. And so comfort produces change, and most people desire peace. No, to include myself, I enjoy peace, but there'll come a time where peace is not going to get it. And so as a leader, sometimes you have to disrupt things. There has to be a healthy disruption, because if you're doing the same thing and getting the same poor results, then something is going to have to change. And so some of the strategies that Dr. Morley and I came up with, I stopped kicking students out of school. I stopped suspending them, stopped locking the doors to where they couldn't get in. The students that I serve, they're so used to locked doors. It did them good to see a door locked, because they're so used to walking away. And so we took that option away from them. If a student could not behave in a class, we would come up with a program and we'll move them to another teacher. And for me, I would sit down and talk to the student, which teacher you like and which teacher you don't like. And I know it may sound kind of petty. It may sound like I'm, siding with the student, but their education was more important than the pride of our staff. We had to get these individuals educated. And so those are some of the things that we had to do. And those are some programs that we put together. We looked at the teacher who had the highest scores, and we looked at the students who had the lowest scores, and they began to marry those individuals up. And so one of the things that I enjoy a lot of times is talking to different leaders and letting them know that the greatest threat of their future success is their current success. And so even though we had great success, we didn't stop along the way and celebrate it, as long as some of my staff thought that we should be celebrating it. Because if you get too comfortable with the celebration, you're going to get behind. And so that's just one of my theories, and that's just one of my points. Difficult times produces innovation and movement, and this is a ideal time that we can grow our population and grow our students. And Dr. Morley and I was talking before the cameras came on. I said, to be honest with you, this is probably one of the better times for students who are disadvantaged and underserved. And the reason being is because prior to the pandemic, they was already dealing with confusion and chaos. And so this is just another adjustment. And so we have to be able to build on a strength that they have. And it's an unwitting strength that they have. We just have to point it out to them. And we have to be able to cater it to them through the means of education, through soft skills and job connection. In these tough times, they will check your drive, your calling, and your passion. Yes.
Add something to it at this point. Dr. Lowry, you were talking about matching up students with teachers. One of the other things that we as leaders also have to keep in mind is that while we are changing things around at the bottom with the students, changing them from teacher to teacher, we also kept in mind that the teacher needed to have the staff development to still feel relevant, because it is very easy to make somebody feel not relevant, and that impacts morale. But if the person has completed staff development, gets an idea what the whole picture is like, then that danger can be somewhat mitigated.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Totally agree 100%. Is that everybody a part of the team must feel wanted and they must feel needed and there's something for them to do. And so you have to make sure as a leader nowadays, you are responsible for everything. Everything under the sun falls on you. And you have to make sure that you're ready for it. And the key to great leaders is building a great team and having someone around you that cares like you care. And one of the things that I introduced to a public institution, and I use the word love, because if our students don't feel like they're loved, then we're gonna have a problem, because there's no way you're gonna be able to get students in to come in to get a GED without them feeling loved and respected, especially during the time the unemployment rate was at 3.9%. And as far as the federal government is concerned, at 5%, everybody is working. So these individual students, they was coming out of the mere fact that they felt loved and appreciated. How to be an effective leader during the 21st century. And so you're just going to have to serve people and learn how to serve them with sincerity, not because you want your numbers to look good, but because you want them to do good and be good out in the community, because really it's a community that we share. And so we want to make sure that we're strengthening everyone's educational standards. And so people, they really don't want to hear about your passion. They want to be able to feel it, because if they can't feel it, they're going to walk away from it. And it's meaningless if you talking about you care for me or you care for a student and you watch them every day walk around with holes in their shoes, duct tape on their shoes. And I'll tell you about a situation. And one of the things that I was trying to instill in my employees is have a leadership of consciousness and being conscious. And so one day, Dr. Marley saw a student walking with scotch tape or duct tape around his shoes, and it was raining, and he had his shoes taped up. He was just proud. He was just so comfortable with it, and he was just proud. But the next day, Dr. Morley did something that really just moved my heart. And she came in and she had a box, and it was some brand new shoes, some brand new boots. And she said, "I got this for that student." And that's the type of leadership that you need when you're going to serve and reach these students during these difficult times. They're tired of asking for stuff. And we are mature enough to know if someone has scotch tape and duct tape on some shoes, that they cannot afford the shoes, or they don't have the resources at the time to get the shoes. And why should we wait when we have the resources available to make it happen? And she pulled those resources out of her own pocket. And that's the kind of staff that we had. We had staff that was looking for faults and looking for shortcomings, so that we can at least try to bridge the gap for our students, whether we like them or not. And that's one thing I share with my staff, is just being honest. Not every student you're gonna like. Not every student you're gonna like. Or there's some students I see coming down the hallway, I had to take a deep breath and say, this is gonna be a long one. This is gonna be a long day. But nevertheless, I have to stay true to my call, and I'm there to serve that student. And so I had to put my differences aside, even as a leader. It's okay. You're not gonna like everybody, but you're gonna have to respect everybody. Okay. And one of the things as a solid leader, you really need to learn what it is that you're willing to die for versus what it is you're willing to live for. Because I've learned people will live for the most minute things. But when you find a leader that's willing to die for something, then you'll find a leader that is operating in the birth calling of him or her. And so if they're willing to die for it, then follow them with all sincerity, because that's where their greatest leadership abilities are going to arise. And you're going to be very fortunate that you did, because you'll see some great things and you'll hear about some great things from that particular person who have established what it is that they're willing to die for. Okay. Now, leaders are not measured by duration, but rather donation. So my hair done fell out, gray, well, I'm already bald, getting gray, but that don't mean anything if I have not donated a great portion of my life to the people that I'm called to serve. It doesn't matter how long I live. It's about how much I give. And so as a leader, you have to make sure every day that you're giving, and giving the right way. And there's a wrong way to give. Sometimes we give just to get people to be quiet, or give to get people out of our way. But it's about giving the right way, giving to make sure that this is going to make a difference. This is going to be an impact in these individuals' lives, and you're giving out of the foundation of your heart. Okay, the next few slides, Dr. Morley will be addressing.
Okay, Dr. Lowry was talking about donating. Donating to your team, donating to your population that you're trying to serve. What does your team need to serve the students? Really ask yourself the question as a leader. Is it training? Is it extra personnel? What kind of needs does your team have? Do they need more flexible time? Try to see what you can do for your team and see if you cannot donate for that. That pair of shoes was based on resources that I knew that I might have to access, and I was able to access them at that time. And I could have done that for basically anybody. How can you donate what the team needs? Ask your team. Be in communication with your team. Always talk. And what can your team donate? Your team itself? It is their time and what you have taught them and what you let them learn and what they were able to learn even outside of work. Learning does not only mean school. Learning also means understanding their communities and their surroundings. And what does your student population need to be able to learn? One of the biggest things we found with underserved students and disadvantaged students is that there was food fear, fear of not having any food. A lot of times students came to the class hungry. Having a food locker was very helpful. The resources the students need to just make it through the day, a bus pass. You know, we were lucky to have foundation money to go ahead and get bus passes for our students. And above all, make whatever you do relevant to whoever you're working with. That means your students as well as your staff.
And one of the things that I might add to that, when I conducted my research and my dissertation was on African American males, you know, it basically was a passion of mine, and still is a passion of mine. But my work is not just directed towards African American males. It is directed to students who fall in this category of underserved. And so we have to make sure that we're doing everything that we can for the students, because just because a student look like me doesn't necessarily mean that that's who I'm really just sold out to. I want to be faithful to my call and my purpose, and it's about dealing with the students who are underserved and disadvantaged. And so we have to make sure that we reach those students every opportunity that we get. Okay. I looked at some of the things, you know, from a leadership standpoint, and trying to figure out how can we get better before we serve the students that we're called to serve. Is, you know, teaching the leadership team and staff that, you know, we have to reinvent ourselves, because as time changes, different methods change, but the passion should still remain the same. Even with the pandemic, it showed us is that everything is not consistent and everything is not forever. And now we're in a position now to where we all are in a situation now to where we're trying to reach our students, but now we're trying to reach them through Zoom or trying to reach them through virtual training. What happens whenever they don't have the resources at home to have the internet service? And if they do have an internet service, how in the world can we get it better to where they can stay in on the whole class? And so leaders must figure out a way. And so sometimes it's going to take more than 5 o'clock. It's going to take more than 6 o'clock. Sometimes you have to be thinking around the clock to figure out how in the world can you impact the students positively. Okay. And also too, and one of the things that causes leaders to be ineffective is that they stay in leadership mode 24/7. You can't do that when you're dealing with a population or dealing with people who have social needs and they have intellectual needs. Because when you're operating at that level, I can assure you, you're not making a whole lot of friends, because you got to be a listener, you got to be a confidant, you got to be a person that's just going to sometimes just sit there and with the notepad, taking notes to try to find out what's going to happen. How can you make people's lives click? And so you can't stay in leadership mode 24/7. Okay. And what I was just saying is that you don't look, listen, or learn. You have to be able to sit back and observe everything that you need to before you start making your actions or making your decisions. And one thing that will cost you as a leader, if you think you are entitled and privileged to the heart, the mind, and the resources of other people because you're holding the title of a leader, then that will cause you to be ineffective, because most of the time people will despise working for you or definitely following you if you feel that you're entitled to some type of special treatment, because we're not. We're there doing what we need to be doing at all times. Now, I promise you, this is my last animal that I'll show. I promise. Now, I was raised on a farm, so I'm country, and I enjoy animals. But they teach me something every time I see an animal and I research them. They always bring out some great leadership qualities that I could use, not only for the advancement of other people, but for advancement of myself as well. And so one thing that I learned about this beaver, and I used to think that they were a nuisance because all they did was clog up the dams, and they're always cutting down trees and things of that nature. But I learned a very interesting fact about this beaver. The only reason and the only purpose why he or she would chew trees all day is because their teeth never stop growing. And if they don't chew on the trees, their mouth will be closed up because their teeth will be too long for them to eat, and eventually they will end up dying. And so here's some points to ponder when you're looking at the beaver. Never stop growing and never stop learning. That is a key success for a leader. And regardless if others view you as a nuisance, continue to follow your heart. Just like the beaver don't care about the dams that they build, they care about their survival because they want to be around as well. And so they follow their heart just as we as leaders. Regardless of, follow your heart and allow your passion and your drive to carry you way beyond 5 o'clock, because you're not going to be able to operate in your passion if you can turn it on at 8 o'clock and you can turn it off at 5 o'clock. That's not a passion, that's a chore. And so you want to make sure that you're in this thing for the long haul. And sometimes it's okay to get a gut check and ask yourself, am I doing what I need to be doing, or am I just doing this for the paycheck? Because if you're doing it for the paycheck, then you could be very cheap, because it takes a lot of heart and a lot of drive, a lot of hours to be a dynamic leader and an impactful leader.
Okay, components of a community of hope in educational setting. This is something that as leaders we have to look at. For a holistic approach to student education and care, we need resources. The holistic approach is not only your students, it is also your staff and faculty. You have different stakeholders in a community that make up that community. And especially in education, the main focus is education. However, other community stakeholders who are not interested in education that much can be your resources. You need to integrate them into a support system of community resources and organizations that help what you are needing to accomplish, and at the same time also be a support for those organizations. The road goes both ways. It is not a one-way street. It has to be going both ways. One of the biggest things you need to make sure of is that you're relevant to the components in your community. You need to know your labor market. You need to know your students. You need to be community-centered, not separate. There is no such thing as, oh, I'm over here. I am the center of. Everything needs to work together. And one big thing that you have to keep in mind is do not limit your community boundaries. So your college works within a specific area. However, your resources can come from anywhere. Go ahead.
And one thing I'll just add real quick, and it just came back to me when I was doing my dissertation on African American males and endangered species in higher education. And one thing that I learned about students of color and students of disadvantage is they are more successful when they learn early and celebrate it often. And so you have to be able to celebrate them early and celebrate them often, because if you don't do that, they lose hope real quick. As I stated earlier, they're so used to closed doors. They're so used to the word no. Come back, try again later. I'm sorry this time. Maybe you next time. So if you want to make a major difference, learn how to celebrate the very small victories that your students are facing. We had like a pre-graduation party for our students, just allowing them to see us in our regalia, let them, we was ground level, just letting them, focus on us. Hey, say, listen, you can do this. This is the background I came from, and if I can do it, you can do it as well. If you want to wear my cap, you can do whatever you need to do. And so we had the pre-graduation ceremony. We actually, celebrated them through putting big A's on their paper, just small stuff, 100s on their paper, just something setting up successful outcomes for them, something that we knew that they was going to be able to do. And whenever you get them addicted to success, then you're on your way of developing a person that will be unstoppable, because it's something about a student who have always had their head down, and now all of a sudden, everything they do, they're lifting their hands in the form of a champion or winning a situation. It speaks volume to their hearts. It makes them walk to the bus different. It makes them come inside of the school building different. And so those are the things, is get them addicted to success, because a lot of our students, they are addicted to failure and they look for failure. But if you can turn it around with these little small, medial things, and you celebrate it, and before you know it, your job, you'll be out of work, because you won't have to encourage them anymore, because they'll find a way to be encouraging you, and you can move on to bigger and better things in terms of trying to now get the community involved as well.
Another thing you have to look at is, do you meet your community's needs? What do you have to offer? Take a critical look at what you're doing and whether it is still relevant to your students and to your community. As an organization, you need to be flexible to meet all the needs and all the demands that are put on you. Constantly evaluate your service. Is it something that is still something that the student needs, or do you need to make a change? Do you need to get a different career pathway? Or do you need to change your student outlook altogether? Are your mission goals aligned to best serve the greater good? That is a question a lot of people have a really hard time answering. Take the time and really evaluate. Are you relevant to the community? Do you meet the community's needs? So, now, you're probably going to ask how to assess what my organization is still good for the community. Take stock of what you and your organization really have to offer, and how is it offered. Do those offerings meet what the community needs? There is no sense in offering a course that a student cannot find any employment in within the community. because 9 out of 10 times the student doesn't have the resources to move outside the community. How do you best network and sell what is offered? Are you the light under the chair, or does everybody know that light is there? Make sure you market yourself appropriately. How do you get buy-in for your programs and for the students? Because once you train your students and you get them to the level where they can go and be effective in the job market, you also need to sell your students. And that sounds kind of strange at first, but your selling is you need to get them a job. You need to figure out who your resources are to get your students employed. And then again, have your community leaders together. Know who they are. Know who you have that can do what you need them to do. And then build your complete community. Make sure your goals and mission are valid and are relevant with the community that you're trying to serve.
All right, we're at the end now. I'm looking forward to answering any questions that that you guys have. Grateful for this opportunity. I don't take it for granted. You guys could be doing anything else you wanted to do, but you took out an opportunity to listen to Dr. Morley and myself. And so we are definitely grateful. I'm very thankful for Mr. Harper for working with me throughout this whole process. I wish him great success, and anything that we can do over here in Fayetteville, just give us a call. We can sit down, we can do whatever we need to do, because your people is my people, and we're in this thing together. Thank you so much.
Dr. Lowry, thank you. And I mean that. Our organization is in the process of implementing something very new for us. We're implementing regional organizations. We're implementing 11 regions and areas within each one of those. We're going to talk about that some more tomorrow. But the whole concept is we want to be able to recognize the unique needs of one area versus another. In other words, our members, our schools, they're not all the same. They don't serve all the same populations. They don't serve all the same communities. They're uniquely different. Okay, so that means not only do we have to be able to properly represent them, but we've got to listen to them. And we have to have people that will be able to listen to them and communicate their needs and enable us all to respond to the unique needs. So I listen to you, all right, the two of you, and I look at you with awe and admiration. I absolutely do. All right, and we've had some outstanding educators join us here in Pathfinder, and I mean outstanding people that I admire. But I wanted our audience, I wanted the people that joined us to meet you and to listen to you and to fully appreciate your achievements. All right, and I understand, why you did it and what you did and so forth, because again, their achievements and their accomplishments are every bit as valuable and as important. All right, perhaps addressing very different populations. All right, but if we can put all this kind of love and capability and understanding together, we begin to really identify the niche that I believe NCCET can provide. All right, and how we can begin to help, all of the folks that are looking for guidance and offering this kind of guidance. So I really want to thank you. I appreciated listening to it. I appreciated understanding what you had to offer. I don't see a lot of questions. I had one person who was eager to share that she had a very similar experience, guidance similar to the experience that you offered at the very beginning of the the presentation, Dr. Lowry, where the guidance council looked at you and said, you're not going to account for much. Apparently she had a very similar experience. They didn't believe that she could make it in a 4-year school, and she ended up going on and getting an MBA. So she thanks you
Awesome.
as well.
Awesome.
She thanks you as well. Any other questions? Or if anybody would like to say something, if you raise your hand, I'd be more than happy to allow you to do so. But otherwise, folks, again, thank you very much. To the people that are still here, we've gone out of our way to try to make sure that we can provide you with information and takeaways from these sessions. So in addition to the broadcast that you just listened to, all right, this is going to be recorded, posted on our website, there will be you're seeing the contact information. There's also going to be a downloadable contact sheet that you can use should you wish to follow up and reach with Dr. Lowry and Dr. Morley. And you may see them again, because I'm excited about the connection, and I think they have something to offer. Another person said thank you. Julie said thank you. This was a wonderful session. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Guys, that really concludes an outstanding day. We had 4 sessions, each one unique, each one distinctly different, and I think each one had a tremendous amount to offer. So I thank you for attending. I thank you for joining us. And I look forward to seeing many of you again tomorrow. We're going to start again with the 3rd and final day. We'll begin at 11 o'clock Eastern time. And in the meantime, please stay safe. We'll see you tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.